Hello, Milepost 1. It is Thursday, the 23rd of April, and we're here for some IPC. In IPC today, we're going to think like an historian. Now, historians, like Dr. Story, are always asking questions. And here are some great question starters that you might be able to use today. Who, what, when, where, and why? These are really important questions that we need to ask to understand our historical artifacts a little bit more. Let's look at one of the artifacts that we saw earlier in the week. We start with what we think we know, because looking at this artifact, there are things that we know already. We know that it's made of wood. We know that it was used by children. Because of this design, we have things that are similar now. We know that it doesn't use electricity. We know that it doesn't have any colours. And we know that it has no real damage to it. There might be a couple of scratches here and there, but it has been well looked after. These things help us work out how old it might be. We might not be able to know for certain, but the fact that it doesn't use electricity tells us it could be quite old, before electricity was used in toys. The fact that there are no colours, or colours used to be quite expensive, so perhaps that tells us how old it is as well. But there's no damage, so it can't be really, really old. This artifact wasn't found buried in the ground from thousands of years ago, because it looks in good condition. So these are some things that give us clues about how old this artifact might be. But what else would we like to know? What other questions do we have about the history of this object? We don't know where it's from, so that's a great where question that we could ask. Where is it from? Let's go back. Who did it belong to? That might tell us an awful lot of information about it. And then the how old question, when was it made? These are things we don't know that we could ask or try to investigate. Thinking about the middle question, who did it belong to? What sort of person do you think owned this artifact? If we know who it belonged to, we might be able to ask them more information if they're still alive, or find somebody in their family who is still alive to find out more about the person who owned it. So these are useful questions that we can ask that we don't have the answers to at the moment. Let's look at another artifact together. This one was also in the information earlier this week. What we think we know so far, well, we can look at this and we know that it's made of paper. We can see that it's damaged, and we can see that it's faded. So that means that the colours have got lighter. It's changed over time. A bit like some of our posters in school, when the sun touches them for a long period of time, those colours start to fade. It tells us it's been there for a while. And then the writing in it is not English, which tells us quite a lot about this artifact. So what questions do you have about this? Have a think to yourself now. Think about who, what, when, where, why. What questions could you ask? Let's have a look at the questions I came up with earlier. Who wrote it? That would tell us a lot about this artifact. What does it say? It's not in English, so maybe it's in a different language that somebody would be able to help translate. If we knew what it said, we would know a little bit more about why it was written. When was it written is the big historical question. Where was it found? Because if this writing isn't in English, it might have been found in a different part of the world, which would tell us more information. And then the last question I came up with, why did they write it? What's this piece of writing for? So why was it written? Some really interesting historical questions. We're thinking like historians. You're going to ask your own questions today with some different artifacts. So you're going to write down the things that you know first, and then ask questions that you would like to know the answers to, or questions that could be useful in finding out more information. There are 3 artifacts that you might not have seen before. Here is the first one. Think about what you already know. When you look at this, think about what you know already. And then think about those questions. Who? What? When? Where? Why? What do you think this artifact might be? Okay, that's your first one. Here's your second one. Okay. So think about what you know already. And it's what you think you know, because you might not be right, and that's okay. We can't be right all of the time when we're historians. We have to put all of the clues together to work it out. Now start thinking about the questions you might ask. Who? What? When? Where? Why? And then this one. Now, this one is a bit different. These are objects. This one is a drawing that was taken from a newspaper or a magazine. So already I'm giving you a clue, a bit of information. This is a drawing from a newspaper or a magazine. I wonder why somebody would draw it instead of taking a photograph. Think about what you already know. Look closely at this picture. Can you tell what it's made from? There's some writing on there. Can you read the writing? And now think about those questions. Who, what, when, where, and why? Your activity today in IPC looks like this. You'll find this on your class story on Class Dojo. Here are the pictures of the artifacts. And in the first box, you're going to write down everything that you know about this artifact. That doesn't mean go onto Google and find out everything about this artifact. This is what you think you know. And then in this box, you write any of the questions that you have, those who, what, when, where, or why. An example for this one might be, who used it? An example for this one might be, why is it green? And an example for this one might be, where was it found? I told you already a newspaper or a magazine, but if you can find out more about that newspaper or magazine, you start being able to think about how old it is. First box, what you think you know, what it's made from, where it comes from, what it's used for, what you think. And then questions that you have about those artifacts. At some point today or tomorrow, I will reveal what these things are, or send you a link so you can find out for yourself. Enjoy exploring these artifacts, everybody, and I will see you very soon. Bye!